Cool, I'm recording this video to go with a blog that I'm currently writing on proper positioning and technique of the fretting hand. That blog is to appear on zotzinguitarlessons.com, which is my website and which is my teaching website. So when a guitar player gets injured, it typically is on the fretting hand and typically the wrist. Now the reason why that will happen is, or how that happens, is if you strain your wrist by, for example, have your thumb too far over on the guitar, which forces your wrist in this like awkward bend. So what happens then when you play that way, holding your wrist like this, is that you put so much strain onto the tendons running through your wrist, running in your wrist, that the tendons have to work 10 times harder to move the muscles attached to the fingers. The result of that is that they get overworked, get inflamed and start swelling, which then in a later stage can turn into carpal tunnel syndrome, but that's for another video. So what this video is about is how do you avoid that from happening? Well, I've got really good news. There's this simple principle that I teach all my students, which is probably why none of my students ever get injured. This simple principle that I teach about the hand positioning in this hand, and the principle comes down to following. You should always hold your fretting hand, and this hand too actually, but this is about fretting hand. You should always hold your fretting hand exactly the same way you'll be holding it when you're sitting in your couch watching TV. Now I say sitting in your couch watching TV, I could say when you're sitting having a glass of wine with very close friends. All of these just merely being analogies for saying when you're sitting totally relaxed. So, and at its most relaxed state, your hand is always looking like this basically, meaning your wrist is in a straight line, your hand is in a straight line, and your wrist with your forearm. Your fingers are semi-curved, and your thumb is always outward on the hand, so you'll never hold your hand like that when you sit in your couch. This is not a relaxed hand. So you'll never hold your thumbs like this, or your wrists, your hands like that, or like that. And this might seem silly and funny the way I'm explaining this now, yet all these things I'm bringing up now is typically how a guitar player hold their hand on the guitar. They're like having their wrist bend like that, or like this, or the thumb is there. So while it might seem funny and weird that I will bring up these examples that you will never hold your hand like this in your couch, yet that's really what most guitar players, or so many guitar players, let's put it that way, what so many guitar players do when they play guitar. They hold the wrist like that on their guitar, or like this, or have their thumb over like that. So it creates all these like awkward like tensions in the tendons and in the wrist positioning. So point being made, how do you solve all of this? Well, you always want to hold your hand, like I said earlier, the way you would when you're sitting in your couch watching TV, which basically means very simple. There you go, like this, right? So fingers semi-curved, you don't do this, you don't do that, right? Weird. Thumb not forced inward but outward on the fingers, right? Like this basically, so like this, and wrist straight, so no bend, right? What that means is this basically. So if I hold my hand like that, the way it would be when it's laying there on my couch watching TV, right? If I rotate my forearm so the inside of my hand gets up so I can fit a guitar neck in there, it comes down to this basically. There you go. I didn't change anything in my hand. I just put the guitar neck in my hand. So when you look at this now, so the inside of my hand is not touching the guitar neck, so I'm not doing this, which would force my wrist in like this inward bend, right? So the inside of my hand is not touching the guitar neck, which has the result that the muscles at the inside of my hand are totally free to move the fingers without pressure of the guitar neck on the muscles. My wrist is completely straight. My thumb is positioned outward, so if I do this, or if I turn like that so you can see more easily from here. So I'm not doing this with my thumb, which creates tension on this muscle here. I even feel the tension in my wrist right now. So thumb outward and pretty much in the middle of the guitar neck, fingers curved exactly the way it would be when my hand's like that. So my fingers are curved, so I'm not stretching out like that. I don't hold my knuckles too far away down from the guitar neck, which has the result that my fingers would have to like stretch out like this. So everything feels close and comfortable. There you go. So this is the perfect hand and wrist position, really. And I think that's the reason why back in the day in work culture of music, when I practiced 10, 12, 13, 15 hours a day, 7 days a week without any interruption ever, didn't skip days. Because my education was so expensive there, I figured I want to get the maximum out of my time studying in Boston. So I think this hand positioning is probably part of the reason why I could practice that many hours and never ever had any discomfort whatsoever in my hand or in my wrist. So again, the principle is very simple. Hold your hand the way you will hold it when you're watching TV.